So our next session, everyone, is how to DAO. So this is really how to start a DAO, how to be part of DAO. Nicole from Seed Club, who's one of our oldest collaborators as we are moving Eve Wealth into Web3, will be moderating this session. So just pulling Nicole and Rec up right now. And then, where is it? Nicole, if you'd like to introduce yourself first, I will hand this off to you.
Sure thing. GM, everyone. My name is Nicole. Good to see you all. Really excited to get into this topic. It's one that's near and dear to my heart. I am a co-creator at Seed Club. We are a DAO accelerator building a sense-making network for bringing communities into the tokenized world. So whether it's DAOs or community tokens or membership NFTs, we support the next generation and the next ecosystem of projects exploring Web3. We are in our 5th cohort. And yes, Eve was in our 3rd cohort this time last year, just coming in. So thrilled to see the development that has happened, and thrilled to get into a conversation on how to DAO with these greats. So we are going to be talking today about what a DAO is, how it works, how they kick off, and a little bit about getting underway and how they run. Ashita, can I pass to you to introduce yourself, and then we'll go around the table?
Yes. So I'm Ashita. I'm a research analyst at Nasari, which is a crypto data and research house. DAOs are actually how I first got into crypto. And so as part of my work, I cover DAOs and studying how they operate and function.
Rekha, can we pass to you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Rekha. I'm the founder of Guild XYZ. We're building platformless membership infrastructure so that everyone can create these unique user journeys across the internet based on and off-chain requirements. And I've been in building organizations on and off the web since 2016. And that's around the time when I got into crypto, and then DAOs really got everything where, I don't know, just all my interests collided in DAOs. I've been doing that for a while now.
Excited to chat with you. Big fan of what you're building at Agora and Guild. And Katya, I don't think that we have met yet, but excited to chat with you today. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Katya, head of product at SuperDAO. We built an all-in-one system to start and operate DAOs. We have more than 2,000 DAOs on our platform and several pretty big ones. I joined SuperDAO a year ago, so we've discovered plenty of things since that time. We started with one DAO structure, then moved to another, and then finally made the platform for NFT membership as well. So really excited to chat with you on the DAOs and what we can make there.
Excellent. So I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about Seed Club as a DAO. And then I think generally my thought here is that I'd love to just have a conversation about what DAOs are and how they work. So I think first, we all touched on this briefly of how we got involved in our DAO. I came to Seed Club actually in an accelerator cohort myself. I was in the 2nd cohort back in spring 2021. And at the time, DAOs weren't even really being used. It was really more of like social tokens or community tokens. I think that obviously DAOs existed and they were out there, but really there was a bit of an evolution in the thinking. And so, as I came on board and started contributing to the community, basically, I came through the accelerator, never left, and then joined the leadership team. We have also been exploring ourselves what it means to be a DAO, and even, just becoming comfortable in calling ourselves a DAO at all. So I'm curious, Rekha, can you start out maybe just telling a little bit more about, what Agora is and does? And I think, what's particularly interesting, in my opinion, with your story and your model is that you are a tool. We use Agora Guild to approve token holders in our Discord. So if you hold club tokens, you can verify that through Guild in our Discord, and then you get access to a certain set of channels. So this is a tool that many of you may have used. If you're in a Discord, you might not be aware of it, but it's something that works really well. Guild also helped us with our airdrop on January 1st. But you're also, sort of progressively exploring DAO. And so can you talk a little bit about what does it mean to be both a tool, but then also in this DAO world?
Absolutely. So to kind of clarify the entities here, so Agora is kind of a shadow brand / product studio that we established last March, where we decided to solve every DAO / internet community problem that ever existed. So we kind of retired that until we only have one product out, which is Guild XYZ that Nicole gave the intro to. So what it means to both be a product, but also kind of like a DAO. I don't really call ourselves a DAO because we're not decentralized yet. We don't have a token either. I think that's kind of the barrier limit that I would consider ourselves moving towards more being a DAO is having a token. Until that, we're centralized on the team side, as shipping a product requires to be centralized on that front, on the product side, which I've seen a lot of teams, they struggle a lot if it's fully remote, fully anonymous, trustless team setup. It's really hard to keep up with the product development and the design. So we're very lucky to have that, but it's also beginning to be more of a challenge to then progressively decentralize. But we really like this idea of starting from a centralized space, having this strength, this basis to our organizations here in our office in Hungary, and then also building this international team around us and going towards progressively being decentralized and work more like a DAO and make decisions in a decentralized way about the product, about the community. But for now, I would say 70% making decisions within the centralized team. We're still very early on that. I really like talking about organizations and how product communities can grow very sustainably and effectively, because we've been doing that for a little bit. And I think that's very adjacent to what DAOs experience a lot of the times, which is, well, there's so many factors that go into that, but kind of my main thought process goes always back to focusing on growing bigger, but also growing stronger at the same time, and changing phases. So once you focus more on growth with a campaign or a new launch or a new season with a DAO, focusing on something new that you've never done before, but then taking the time to strengthen yourself. I think that's very similar in both of these types of entities. And that's a core principle for us.
I think that the progressive decentralization is such a great point. And, I see some questions popping up around what makes a DAO. Ashita or Katya, do you have any thoughts on either, what makes a DAO based on your experience, or this progressive decentralization?
Yeah, if I can start, then I'll pass to Ashita. Yeah, we actually, it's really interesting to listen to Rekha, because we actually have the same path. So we've raised venture funding, and we have pretty usual company structure for now, and we are progressively decentralizing our community. And firstly, we do it in terms of the side community, the community of people who use our product. And of course, we do not start with complicated mechanics such as tokenomics, tokens, and all of that stuff, because we are still quite early. So we start with some membership NFTs for our communities. We decentralize some kind of off-chain decisions, of course, not the revenue distribution for now. And then we're planning only after we develop like our ecosystem of developers and we have a big like monthly transactions volume on our platform, only then we'll decentralize much more. So I guess, and as for our clients, we see that they have absolutely same mechanic in terms of like this product or product DAOs, where you have a product which generates something and you have a community of people who use it and who would like to share some revenue. So I really see this progressive decentralization as the key and the main way to actually start a DAO. And the usual model is like a membership NFTs that start with some governance, then some side DAOs, maybe with grants decisions, and only then tokenization of the whole DAO.
Yeah, that's a great point as far as also just the sub DAOs and how organizations can spin out. Ashita, I'm curious on your take, and also if you have thoughts on, when organizations are a good fit or not for considering a DAO model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I agree with Katya that DAOs come in many different flavors. And in my mind, I see that a DAO is really great for forming and deploying capital really quickly. And with that, I've noticed that a lot of investment DAOs do really well. They form structure really quickly and well. And on the other hand, we have protocol DAOs that are huge DAOs that govern a protocol like Uniswap. And so I think it's kind of hard to define what a DAO is. It's still so nebulous, and it's because there's just so many flavors of what it can be. And so I like to just think of them as an open community that might be enabled by crypto in some form. And I think that when we're trying to think of a DAO, we fall into the trap of trying to compare it to an organization that already exists. And I think for the most part, a lot of companies that run a product, a Web2 product, they're fine just staying as C Corp with hierarchy. And I think on the DAO side, when we have a protocol that is already decentralized, it makes sense to have a decentralized community run it. And so I think we still have work to do in understanding what DAO use cases are. I think investment DAOs make sense, protocol DAOs make sense. And I think, co-ops can form more like a DAO and may, run that way. But I think that most startups and companies today are probably fine how they are.
Yeah.
And I think that just wanting to form a DAO and just to have a DAO is probably not going to work out, because companies run really well in the IPO and things are great. I think DAOs are still experiments that we're running.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a great point, that not everything needs to be a DAO. The examples that you gave as far as protocol and investment definitely have a few more years under development and sort of proving out. I think that these other use cases, whether it's communities, and obviously that's where Seed Club specializes, or some of the co-op businesses that are exploring exit to community, are other interesting primitives that we're seeing starting to play out. I think that the other piece that you're touching on is around how this coordination works. And so, within really one of the most fundamental definitions of a DAO is often a Reddit group or a Facebook group or a group chat with a bank account. Of course, the bank account is an on-chain treasury. And to some of the questions in the chat, that treasury is then governed by a token, whether it's a ERC20, which is a social token, or a fungible token, are all the same thing, or governed by an NFT. There's different models that use different types of tokens, but ultimately ownership of that token gives you governance rights of what to do with that shared treasury. There's interesting experiments being spun up now that I think are starting to challenge these concepts. There's a lot of communities that are coming in and saying, the community in and of itself is valuable, and we know that the things that we're going to create are going to generate value in our treasury. And so there's value in sharing in that rather than the founders being the only ones that benefit when there's an exit. We think that everybody who created the value should share in that value. And then, I think this other model that we're seeing is Nouns is sort of the poster child for this, is this, the sort of meme as DAO. And so forming around these, trends or memes or collectives, and then deploying capital. And that's something where you do really see immediate decentralization. And I think that that's another sort of call out, is that like with some of these, so like Uniswap you mentioned, Nouns is another one, the decentralization exists at moment of creation. In contrast with some of the projects that we work with and some of the builders and the communities, as we were talking, decentralization is progressive and it is something that we explore. So let's talk a little bit about for communities like that, for projects, organizations like that, where they exist. It's a community of people coming together, whether it's to build a tool, whether it's to create art and creativity or content, whether it's an agency that are exploring this sort of progressive decentralization. What are some of the tools and best practices that we see being used? And I mean tech tools, but I also mean like meeting structures, communication structures. What are some of the things that we're bringing over from the old systems that still work really well? And what are some of the novel ways that Web3 is, experimenting in how people collaborate and communicate? Katya, do you want to start off?
Yeah, so actually the tool set for the emerging DAOs with like a low level of decentralization is pretty simple. And so while building our product, we've also thought of pretty complicated stuff, and we had some references from really complicated governance system and so on. Then we understood that at like first months of operations, DAOs do not need that. So I guess I would define the following tool set. So at start, it's usually Discord, Telegram, Slack. I think they solve the role pretty good. The problem pretty good. Yeah, there are some problems with engagement in some of them, but it seems like pretty solvable. The NFT membership at start, I would even divide the patterns we see are the following. You have like NFT membership as like the access to the DAO itself and maybe just the structure of the organization, and then some rewarding NFTs or some particular levels of NFTs emerge. So for instance, the best contributor, best someone, or for instance, as I saw for product DAOs, who like Bioeconomy has a great developer ecosystem, and they also have the NFT for developers, and only developers can vote on grant decisions, although they have some other membership NFTs who cannot vote on grant decisions. So this tier system of membership, it solves, I would say, everything before token. So this is the first one is community, then it's NFT membership and rewards. Then some DAOs use some great tools like Dwork XYZ for contributor payouts, and they might even introduce some like private tokens, as we call it, when you have like these non-transferable tokens which just accumulate your reputation inside the organization or your level of contribution. And according to this, when DAOs evolve, they can airdrop real tokens, real liquid tokens in respect to those private tokens. So this is also a great mechanic, but we've discovered it not a long time ago. Some DAOs just have their spreadsheets counting how many this XP points each contributor has. So this is also a good practice. I would say that these are the best tools, and just for the governance, the gas snapshot is the best thing. The first one is, of course, Telegram and Discord voting. It's what every DAO starts with, and then they go to snapshot and use your membership NFTs with different voting powers right there.
Ishita, I'm curious if there are, like favorite tools, tech tools that you've interacted with, but then also like, what are some of the other human coordination best practices that you've seen work really well, especially as a community is exploring sort of early DAO mechanics?
Yeah. So more on the practices side of things, like running a community, like even in the Web2 world, it's hard, and you have to keep people incentivized and engaged. And I think that practices that we tend to forget when it comes to the DAO world is, how do we pay these people well? So like having some sort of compensation structure, and having, when it comes to treasury management, having some sort of finance person on board that manages your treasury. These are easy things that we forget that are important when it comes to running a DAO. And also KPIs are just such a Web2 term. But I think when it comes to running a protocol and you have engineers on board, you have all these important people building product, it's important to have some sort of KPI system where you keep people engaged, so that they see the grand vision for this DAO versus like the short-term goal where we're all just trying to figure out how to figure out how we manage through this Discord and this mess of a community. So I think those are just basic things that we forget when it comes to DAOs. And then when it comes to tech tools, do you mean like DAO tools?
Yeah, just if there's any that, especially any that haven't been mentioned, that you think are worth calling out.
Mm-hmm. I think just the handful of the ones that everyone also always uses, like Gnosis Save, Snapshot, Big Guild Fan, are important. And I think that, so there's another tool, Govern, that's being built, and it kind of maps out contributor contributions. So there's more transparency around what you worked on in the DAO, and the rest of the community can see. So, transparency is really important for a DAO, and it's something that DAOs enable, which is really important. So transparency from the contributor to the organization and vice versa is really important. So I'm a big fan of Govern as well.
I'll have to check that out. I am familiar with Coordinate, which it sounds is somewhat similar, where you're looking at sort of person to person contribution. Rekha, you obviously have insight into a lot of DAOs because a lot of DAOs use your tools. Anything to add here? Any human best practices or tech best practices as people set things up and work to solve some of those human coordination challenges?
I think based on our own experience, with our recent growth and everything, and how I see the communities that use us run, I would say taking into accounting this like new ways of cooperation that came with Web3, like the very big levels of anonymity, fully remote, trustlessness, never seen before amounts of trustlessness. But also there's a weird amount of trust. Like we just send money back and forth without any contracts or anything. Like there's no contracts happening in Web3, just with like bigger investment stuff. Anyway, so there's lots of innovation on the human side of things, but that still needs catching up with the tech side of like what tooling we have for that. And then when we have the good tooling that caught up with the human innovations that we learn how to do, there's need to be more innovation on both sides so we can like reach the ideal level of decentralizedness. I think what maybe is relevant to mention to pay attention to is to be as simple as possible. If you don't need to, don't launch a token. That is brings with itself legal issues, and you have to figure out a liquidity providing on which chain, for how long, how much, distribution curves, and like all these economic things. So I would say be as simple as possible, both with the assets that you organize yourself around, all in governance as well. If you can, keep it off chain and just use a Telegram voting tool while it makes sense. And then also be very clear on the information flow so that everybody knows what's up, and that kind of correlates to the onboarding flow as well, what the new members of this community, how they're going to find their ways into the depths of the community. And the third point is like the roles, the membership layers of the community. How do you want it to look like? What layers do you have? How does it make sense? When people come into your community and join, what type of people will join based on what your mission is with the community, and kind of set it up that way, but keep it as simple as possible to avoid all complications for everyone.
Those two pieces you just mentioned are so key. So how information flows, and then what the structure of the community is. I think it's so interesting when we're looking at like governance and power structures and decision making. Often where the challenges arise is when there's information asymmetry, and when there's a sort of like lack of alignment in how people are understanding their power and decision making and input and autonomy in an organization. And so I think that making those pieces really clear of how the community works, sort of where that DAO or where that organization may be in the DAO evolution process, is so key. Yancey from MetaLabel tweeted about this sometime in the last day or week or month. I don't know, time flies, but he mentioned that one of the practices that they have been using really well, and this is something we've also been implementing in Seed Club, is communicating through writing. And so that's something that the team has been doing a lot, is experimenting more with long form, putting your ideas out there through, as you develop something, putting it into a memo, sort of like famously popularized within Amazon, that you put this out to teams, and it helps, especially with this like decentralization that you were talking about, Katya, with the remote working, it really helps people understand what each other are doing while there's still this sort of like decentralized work nodes happening. When you create these memos or a PR FAQ, it details, what a working group is working on, lets others give context, and then allows work to flow forward once there's a little bit of agreement and understanding from the group. But context building is a huge challenge that we continue to face within Seed Club. And I think, because of this goal toward decentralization, it's something that I think that DAOs specifically are confronted with. I know we're coming up against time. We probably have time for like one burning question, if there is one. Amanda, is there a good way to source this? I've sort of been monitoring the chat to see if there's anything out there, and we've addressed some of them. What is a POAP? I can address that. That's an easy one. POAP stands for Proof of Attendance Protocol. And basically it just means it's an on-chain representation that you were at some event, or that you did something, or that you participated in something. What's great is that it's on a very low cost blockchain. And so it's really easy to use and implement. It was one of the first POA, or, sort of like on-chain attributes there. And as I think was mentioned by somebody in this amazing group, the other piece is that it really does allow for example, really lightweight governance. You don't have to issue an expensive NFT. You can use something lightweight like a POAP to just signal that you are part of something. I think that we're going to tie things up. Ishita, Rekha, Katya, any last words before we pass the mic back to Amanda?
Thank you for having us. And if you have more questions or you need more articles or knowledge on DAOs, I'm more than happy to share. We also have like a Notion page, maybe with my community manager, that's like intro to DAOs and all these articles. Maybe I'll share the link here in a sec. That's also good knowledge base if you're interested.
Thank you. Amanda, thank you for having us. Really appreciated it. And yes, if you're interested in DAOs or social tokens, community tokens, please hit us up. There's a wealth of information amongst us for. Yeah, back to you, Amanda.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
guys so much. Actually, you guys are like 5 minutes ahead of schedule, which is crazy, before even the buffer. So like, thank you for being so succinct and efficient. But I actually had, in addition to kind of the closing remarks, I was like touching on kind of some of the learnings, because I know that for Alana and I, as we've been transitioning the EVE community right into Web3, when we started doing that end of last summer, beginning of the fall, there were so many different things we ran into of like, oh, this failed, like, how can we try again? What do we experiment with? What are other communities sort of doing? So I'd love if you could also touch upon something that was like a learning for you of like, we tried this and it, you know, maybe it like failed, and maybe we didn't say that in public, as Nicole was even just touching upon, of that, you know, building very transparently even within the DAO and the community, so everyone like understands what's going on. I just like having that contrast beyond people seeing, right, like this is a huge DAO and it's really successful and we have all these people doing all of these things. So as kind of like an encouraging remark as you sort of sign off, if you could each touch upon that, that would be super appreciated. And I'm working on bringing our next speaker up. So thank you so much. Nicole, I'll pass this back to you first.
Yeah, I have a quick, easy, fun one. Bounties for me are NGMI. We tried them. Bounties are often looked at as a great way to give people access to come in and get, first couple tokens. And I think that's so important. And it's important to try to make easy ways for new community members to get tokens without having to purchase. Having said that, we saw that the tasks and work that we need is really just not translatable into a bounty, which is like a new person coming in and doing a task that like ultimately just ends up feeling like busy work. And so for us, bounties are often sort of looked at as like this great sort of onboarding. But for me, I saw that like the work wasn't valuable, and it actually took more time for our other contributors to kind of work through it and onboard people. So we look at other ways that people can lean in that are not bounties. That's my hot take and learning. Let's see, Rekha.
I think I'd rather just ask for advice from other people in the space. As for learning, that worked out for me really, really well. And I also, whenever we're onboarding new members, we also, just tell them to ask things and tell them to also go into other communities and see what's in there and just ask there as well. I think there's a very open culture in Web3 in regards to like helping one another out. Urban Dictionary doesn't always help if you're trying to catch yourself up to speed there. But whenever you're getting into a new community, I think usually the environment is very inclusive and open and helpful. If it's not, maybe it's not even the space for you. So I think that's also like a good measurement for figuring that out.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is one of the beauties of Web3 is that like people are really eager to welcome and onboard people. Katya, how about a learning from you that you had to learn the hard way? Oh. Or Ashita?
This is kind of along the lines of what Rekha said. When I first joined my first DAO, I think I kind of got lost because I didn't know where to go to ask for help, where to go to get onboarded, or how to contribute. And so whenever you join a community, I think it's in the DAO space, everyone's willing to help because everyone's kind of gone through the same journey. Things are still a little bit messy, so it can be kind of hard to find out information. So always be willing to ask for help, and you can DM anybody. Everyone's on Twitter. People will answer, and people are there to support you. Yeah, so I think just being able to ask for help. No one's gonna think you're dumb or anything. Everyone's been through it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Like I think that the art of a cold call or a cold DM is another one that's like really hard to learn. But it is an art. Less is always more, and knowing how to slide into somebody's DMs and get your request answered is a real art. And so, just keeping at it, being consistent, but knowing the way to make it really brief and make your ask really clear. Katya, any last points from you?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything said, and there is also one more mechanic of this like spaces when people like have their DAO meetings open for everyone. I actually tried to like visit at least one of them as just an individual contributor, not a core member, and I didn't manage to visit any of them. I'm always like asking in Discord, "Hey guys, what happened? And can I have a summary?" So I guess it's really about asking for help, and I actually share Nicole's take on bounties. If the one single use of bounties I've seen, which was really like kind of seems successful, is when DAOs pay from their like open Gnosis safe to contributors with stable coins, which that's like a freelance shop, but with reporting. So with a transparent reporting. So I really think that things shouldn't be complicated here, and just do what you would do with just simple Web2 communities.
Indeed. In the music analogy, we know we sort of like, I spent a lot of time teaching and working with musicians in a music college. And so we talked about like the ability to be a good hang and the ability to sort of like understand the chord changes and fill in, as you understand those chord changes. And so the ability to basically like sit and observe and kind of get the vibe and then know how to come in at the right time is so key. And I think that that's a big piece of like, as you're joining a DAO, just, spend some time observing and lurking.
Yes, you guys did amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing those learnings and, showing that little bit of vulnerability, because all of us are constantly figuring it out, different social faux pas, figuring out crypto Twitter. So thank you, all four of you so much, Katya, Erica, Nicole, and Ashita. Really grateful for you all being here and kind of shedding some light on operating a DAO, what it means to be part of it, what all this terminology means, because there's so many acronyms everywhere all the time. But I wanted to wish you all a beautiful rest of the day.